with our Let's Do Something series here. And for those of you who haven't been here before, we have been going through the book of Daniel. We've been taking it chapter by chapter each week. We're in chapter 3, Daniel chapter 3, if you want to go ahead and start looking that up if you're wanting to follow along tonight. But first, week 1, we talked about doing the small things. When we want to do something big, we got to start by doing something small. And we saw how Daniel took on the challenge of following God just in his little eating habits that God wanted. And that led to him and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, led to all 4 of them to getting more responsibility and things of that nature. Last week we talked about do something, let's help, that we are all called to help. We all have gifts, we all have abilities. God doesn't give us what He gives us so that we can just sit on it, but so that we can use it for His glory. Alright? And this week, we're going to be continuing on in Daniel 3. Alright? I'm tired of trying to keep clicking, so Turner's got my back there. He's going to be clicking for me as we read through. Yeah, Turner. Alright. So, starting in chapter 3, verse 1. It says this. King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then he sent messengers to the high officials, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the provincial officers to come to the dedication of the statue he had set up. So all of these officials came and stood before the king Nebuchadnezzar. Something fall behind me? Sorry. King Nebuchadnezzar. Then the herald shouted out, "People of all races and nations and languages, listen to the king's command. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither," I don't know why don't have that anymore, "lyre, harp, pipes, and other musical instruments, bow to the ground to worship King Nebuchadnezzar's golden statue. Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into the blazing furnace." Okay, so how quickly do we forget as King Nebuchadnezzar? Alright, so King Neb, we just read about last week and the week before. Okay? He talked about how he threw himself down before Daniel. Daniel's like, "Hey, here's your dream, this is what it's going to mean." And he threw himself down. He said this, he said, "Truly your God is the greatest of gods, the Lord over kings, the revealer of all mysteries, for you have been able to reveal this secret." Okay, so that same guy 2 chapters ago is now going, "Well, the dream stuff, that's all right, that's all cool, but, it's not that great." And then he decides what I'm going to do, because we talked about his dream, right? His dream, the head was a golden statue. It was the statue part was gold at the top, and that was his part of the kingdom. He's like, "I'll fix that. I'll make a completely gold statue." All right? He's going to try to make his kingdom reign forever. All right? Second thing you need to know. Babylon is a diverse place. Right now, Babylon is what's happening. Babylon, in the words of Mitchell, Babylon went ham on everyone else, and they conquered all these people. So they are in charge. It's a lot of nations under them. Okay? So they invite all these people in so that they can, okay, we're going to get our whole empire, our whole world here. We're going to unify under this one statue. We're not going to quarrel, we're not going to quarrel, we're not going to whatever. We're going to make sure everyone's worshiping the same thing. All right, we're going to try to bring it together. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do here with this golden statue. All right, so at the sound, reading on, verse 7. So at the sound of the musical instruments, all the people, whatever their race or nation or language, bow to the ground and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. But some of the astrologers went to the king and informed on the Jews. Okay? Who are these astrologers? These astrologers were the ones earlier whenever the king had the dream problem and he couldn't get someone to answer it. They were in that group that couldn't answer it. They were a part of the group that whenever Daniel and his 3 buddies, whenever they all got better positions, they are the ones who lost out. Okay, so it's not just like the astrologers are like, "Oh, those guys aren't bound." They're like, "Oh, I don't like those guys. We're going to get them. We'll watch. Oh, they're not doing that? Okay, I'm going to go tell the king on it." All right, they want their spot. Okay, so they go and they tell the king. Verse 9. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "Long live the king." Yeah, same person who was really worried about getting killed earlier. So, "Long live the king. You issued a decree requiring all the people to bow down and to worship the golden statue when they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and other musical instruments. That decree also stated that those who refuse to obey must be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom you have put in charge of the province of Babylon. They pay no attention to you, Your Majesty. They refuse to serve your gods, and they do not worship the golden statue you have set up." Tattletales. Anyway, continuing on. Verse 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought before him. And we're going to stop there, and it says when they were brought in. But before that, okay, is it safe to say that Nebuchadnezzar has some anger issues? Right, this is the same guy, mind you, that, a couple months before, he was like, "You can't tell me my dream, we're going to tear you limb from limb. Oh, you can't do this, we're going to send someone to everyone's house and make sure all the wise people are dead." Nebuchadnezzar flies a little bit off the handle. Okay? What he has trouble with is the fact that he does not process things. He immediately reacts, the emotion to what it is. Now, some of us can relate to Nebuchadnezzar. Some of us have that Neb problem. Like something happens, something said to you, someone calls you a bad name or something, and instead of thinking about it, instead of processing, instead of thinking, okay, what do I need to do in this situation? We're like, "What? You did not call me short." There we go. That's a little louder. I tried to make a noise there, but it didn't work. Some of us are like this. Some of us, like, immediately when something happens, so-and-so said that. Oh, they did this. Someone cut me off. Rage. You know what I'm talking about? Some of you are like, "I don't know," and some of you are like, "Over here, over there." All right? It happens. Some of us are like this. But whenever we are not slow to anger, which God talks about in the New Testament, that we need to be slow to angry. Slow to angry. That's good English. All right, we need to be slow to get angry. When we're not, we make poor choices. All right? Make really poor choices whenever we do this. And Neb, he does a lot of bad choices, okay? So, going on in 14. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is this true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you refuse to serve my gods or to worship the gold statue I have set up? I will give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue I've made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments." Part of me wonders, did he carry the band with him? He's like, "Okay, all right, Shadrach, y'all come in here. Band's over on the side, we're ready." I don't know. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. It's just interesting thought. All right. So anyway, bring in musical instruments. "But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And then, what God will be able to rescue you from my power?" Okay, so this is not the age of cars and trains and things of that nature. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego probably aren't right next to Neb whenever they're like, "Okay, everyone bow down," and they're over in the corner like, okay, it's spread out. Nebuchadnezzar has some time to think about it. These three guys have been very helpful to him.
My boss.
Okay, that's all right. These three guys have been very helpful to him. These guys have given great advice. That's what it talks about. They were made great decisions. And a king, so the best thing he can have is someone who makes great decisions. So he's kind of thinking about it. He's like, okay, I knew I said, calm down. Come on, Ned, calm down. I knew I said that, but I'm going to give you one more chance. Okay? So he does this. And then the other thing is, he says, "From my power." All right? I mean, how quick can we forget the power that God has in our lives, and how quick can we let something go away? He sits there, he praises God 2 chapters, both chapters he praises God at some point in time. And then he comes in and he's already throwing God to the side. What happens when you become successful, when you accomplish something, when you impress others, A lot of times we decide, we go, okay, God, you got to help me with this. God, help me with this test. God, help me with this tryout, all that. And then we do well. And then people are all, man, Hope is awesome. Maddie, it's all about Maddie. She is so great. And then we're like, yeah, we are. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, no, it wasn't that I prayed to God and He gave me the strength, the power, the focus, or any of that. No, it's all me. And I don't call them out because they're proud. I looked at them and they made eye contact. Be weary. All right. So we got to remember, no matter where we are, now we got to give God the credit. God gives us everything. Nebuchadnezzar constantly forgetting this. Verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied, "Oh, Nebuchadnezzar." I just feel like that'd be a cool way to say it. Say, "Oh, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power, your majesty. But even if He doesn't, we want to make it clear to you, your majesty, that we will never serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up." First off, they are faced again with another life or death situation. Okay? And they go, you know what? God will rescue me. God has the ability. God is able to rescue us. Okay, the three amigos, which that's what I'm going to call them because it's just a lot to say. Okay, the three amigos here, they know that God is powerful enough to rescue them. They know that Nebuchadnezzar is not the ultimate authority. Okay? They also know that God's glory is more important than their safety. I want this to be known. A lot of times what we do whenever we're faced with a situation, we're faced with something, we pray this prayer. We're like, all right, God, I'm going to Honduras. God, I pray for your safety. I pray you keep me safe. I pray you don't let the plane go down the ocean. I pray, God, that when I get there that I don't get sick. I pray, God, that I don't catch some disease. Pray, God, that you keep me safe. I don't hurt myself so I have to go to a Honduran hospital. And God, I pray that you give me safe travels as I come back. In your name, Lord Jesus, I pray, amen. That's not why God's sending you somewhere. God does not call us to save lives. Now, don't get me wrong. God's not saying, hey, go play in traffic. That's not what God's saying. But the life that God calls us to, it does not guarantee our safety. What does He guarantee? He guarantees peace. He promises wholeness. He promises holiness. Okay? Something that's important to know is that bad things do happen to good people. They do. And then we have the choice. Assuming that you're a good person. When bad things happen to you, we have that choice. Okay, do we give God the honor in this? Or do we let it destroy our witness for God? Whenever something bad happens, when a relative's sick, it's tough. It's hard. But does that mean that God has left us? No. Does that mean that, man, I must not be doing right if I'm struggling? No. In our struggles is where God shows the most. It's in our pain. That's when we rely on God the most, whenever things are all out of whack. His power is made perfect in my weakness. So Paul says later on in the New Testament, that's what we're talking about here. Bad things are going to happen. It's a part of life. Whenever you follow Christ, your life is going to be more difficult than if you didn't. And that's a good thing. All right, we're going to dive into that more in just a second. Second thing is, our witness is very important. Okay? The three amigos, those guys, okay, they could have had several responses. Okay? And you just think about these responses and tell me if you think they'd be all right. Because at this point, he says you got one more chance. Bow. They can fake it. They could be like, yeah, we're going to worship. Yeah, I don't really mean it, God. They could have done that. They could have said, I'll ask for forgiveness later, right? Some of us, when we make a mistake or we desire to do something that's wrong, we're like, oh, okay, God will forgive me later. Okay, they could have done that. They're like, oh, we worship now, but God's a loving, forgiving God. They could have said, you know what? It's the law of the land. God will understand, right? It's a rule. It's a rule. So we'll do it. Or the king appointed us. The king gave us this wonderful position. So, we kind of scratch my back, scratch yours. We got to do it because he gave us, the spot we're in. It's a foreign land, okay? And that's just what they do. You're there, you do it. We're here. They bow to the statue. We just got to do it because it's a foreign land. How about this? Well, we're not hurting anyone, right? They're not hurting anyone by bowing. And the last one, if I get killed, who will watch out for the people? I'm in leadership. If I get killed, who's going to take care of it? When we look at these excuses, these justifications, we're like, that seems so bad. That's not too bad. But what these are lies. These are lies from Satan, and I'll tell you why. Because one, this would be saying your life is more important than God's glory. And that's a hard thing for us all to figure out and all of us to live by. That God's glory is more important than our lives. And that doesn't mean that everyone's going to become a martyr. That doesn't mean everyone's going to die for the cause of Christ. But whenever we make choices like that, all of us have probably used that justification for not doing something for God. And we're just like, oh yeah, what we're doing is we're elevating us above God. And God's glory is the reason that we have life. God is giving us this life, and this is supposed to exude, hey, this is God. God did this to me. This is awesome. This is not me. This is what He wants, and we're supposed to be doing that. Okay. I mean, if we look at it, to me, of that list of examples, I think the one that gets me the most is the first one, is I'll just fake it. Most of you have friends. I've witnessed it. Okay, all of you have friends. But there's those times when you're at school, whenever someone's being made fun of, you're in the group, and you're like, oh, we shouldn't be making fun of this person, but I'll kind of laugh along, but I don't really mean it. Yeah. We have that moment. What this is really doing is this is killing your witness. Whenever you do that, whenever you're just, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm good 90% of the time, but then this one time I cursed out so-and-so in the hallway. And they go, oh, that's a guy who lives for Christ? That's a guy who's supposed to be different? That's the same reaction I would have. We are held to a higher standard. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they knew it. The three amigos were like, okay, this is more important. What my thoughts, what people view of me, that's not important. Listen to what God says. Ultimately, God said, don't put any other gods before me. Straight up said it. If your mom says, hey, I want you to take up the trash now, and you do it any other time other than now, yeah, you did not do what your mother said. Right? Some of you are like, oh man, how'd you know? Okay? I mean, really, God says it right there. Don't put any other, He didn't say, oh, unless it keeps you from getting killed. No. Okay? So this is what He does. That's what He says. So, start at 19. So Nebuchadnezzar, who was so furious, shocker, okay? He was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage. I wonder what that looked like. I've seen some. I think John has seen my distorted rage face. I have one, and it was scary. Just a moment, and I can't even. I'm gonna try to do it right now, but I can't. It's like the eyebrows. No, I can't. I'm trying to think of that moment, it's just my eyebrows start light to their own, and I'm just like, what? And I forget what it was for. It's something like he made a noise when I just told someone else to be quiet. And I was like, what? I mean, I was distorted with rage. This is how bad it's gotten for Neb. Okay, the guy's gonna die of a heart attack. Actually, he's gonna be killed by another person who's the king. But anyway, that doesn't matter. All right. So anyway, so his face. Back to the scriptures. His face is distorted with rage. Okay, he commands that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So it's like, throw them in the furnace. All right, so he does that, gets it really hot. He gets the strongest men to do it. So they tied them up. They threw them in the furnace, fully dressed in their pants, turbans, robes, and other garments. And because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot fire in the furnace, the flames killed the soldiers as they were throwing the 3 men in. Okay, so this is kind of like a double whammy. One, yes, this is evidence that it was hot. Okay, it's not like he threw him into. We're not talking about a furnace like, ooh, furnace, get a little warm there. No, these things were like room-sized furnaces. These are things that they used to do their iron work and their, I don't know if it's iron, but their metal work and things like that. They had to have monster furnaces. Okay, so it's so hot it kills the people throwing them in. So not only did he lose soldiers, but he lost some of his strongest men. All right? Whoops. Rage. Don't be rageful. That's what happens. All right? 23. Moving on. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. Fell into the roaring flames. But suddenly, Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisors, "Didn't we tie 3 men and throw them into the furnace?" "Yes, Your Majesty, we certainly did." Kind of a well, duh, you were there. All right? So, we threw them in. And look, Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men unbound walking around in the fire unharmed. And the 4th looks like a god." Then Nebuchadnezzar came as close as he could to the door of the flaming furnace and shouted, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out, come here." So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped out of the fire. Can you say back on the bandwagon? All right, whoa, come here, we're cool. I mean, figuratively, because you're really warm right now, but come on, we're cool. All right, 27. Then the high officers, officials, governors, and advisors crowded around them and saw that the fire had not touched them. Not a hair on their head was singed, and their clothes was not scorched. They didn't even smell of smoke. Okay? This is a complete God rescue. Okay, it's not like God just let them live and they came out maimed and disfigured. They weren't even touched. The people throwing them in, dead. Them, not even touched. Don't even smell like smoke. Don't even smell like they've been cooking barbecue. All right? They're fine. They may smell like sweat. I don't know if they felt warm or not. But they don't even smell like smoke. Okay? And not only is this fact they were completely saved, they were completely rescued by God, not only in front of King Neb, but also in front of all the officials, all the other leaders. Do you think God had a plan for this? Yes. A lot of people, a lot of important people saw the power of God that day. 28, verse 28. Then Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel to rescue his servants who trusted in him. They defied the king's command and were willing to die rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make this decree. If any people, whatever their race or nation or language, speak a word against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, then they will be torn limb from limb, and their houses will be burnt into heaps of rubble. There is no other God who can rescue like this." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to an even higher position in the province of Babylon. Okay, real quick note before we get in the meat of this. Notice Nebuchadnezzar didn't say, we're all going to worship this God. I'm going to worship this God. He said, no one can talk bad about this God. Do we think King Nebuchadnezzar is going to kind of get full of himself again? Yeah. He even left it out for him here. He didn't say he was going to worship him. He just said no one can say anything bad about him. All right? It's kind of like that whole thing, I can talk about my brother all day long, but you say one thing, I'm going to get you. All right? It's kind of like, okay, no one else can say anything about their God. I might be a little wishy-washy. All right. So that's how this ends, okay? The 3 amigos, they made a big difference, okay? Because they were willing to stand up, because they were willing to stand before the king and do what they knew was right, they were given even more responsibility. Guys, this is what's going to happen for you. Not that you're going to be thrown in a blazing furnace and that you're going to walk out. What I'm saying is that God puts things that are big in front of you, and whenever we take those things and we do them, then we're able to have even more influence. Each one of us are supposed to be standing up for God in the circles that we are, that we live. If you're in band is where you're supposed to be standing up for Christ. If you're on the football team, if you ride track, if you do sailing, if you do golf, if you are If you're a gamer and you're online, you are supposed to be standing up for Christ where you are. And guess what? That standing is going to lead to rough times. You're going to face adversity. It says it all over the Bible. Hey, when you follow God, there's going to be trouble. But take heart, for I have overcome it. God has. God has overcome it. Anything that hits us, God has overcome that. It's all going to go to His glory. It's all going to be better, to say the least. It may not be better in the world's terms, but we don't live by the world's terms. The last part of this I want to bring up is this. Standing up for your faith, it's a lot easier with more people. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, if you look at the book of Daniel, which we're only going to do the first 4 chapters, but as you look at their lives, they are together. Them and Daniel combined, these are friends that do a lot of amazing things for God. If you ever try to do anything by yourself, usually we know it'd be a lot easier with help. We were actually talking about this at dinner. How many of you have ever had a friend come over and spend the night? Right? Awesome. Or you've maybe been that friend that's gone over somewhere else. Whenever I would usually invite friends, it wasn't the nicest thing. What I would do is I would have some big job I had to do, like big yard work. We had to move a lot of stuff. And I'd be like, hey, Andy, Corey, y'all want to spend the night tonight? And usually after about a year knowing me, they're like, sure, what are we doing? I mean, yeah, we're just going to move a piano, guys. We're going to help someone move, and then we're going to hang out all night. We get so tired from that, we go to bed. But, it's better with more people. You're braver braver? You have more courage when you have more people, right? That goes for doing good things and doing bad things. And it's something like, have you ever played Red Rover? Anybody ever played that tremendously dangerous game? The whole point of Red Rover is to call someone right over. And then they run full strength at you, and they're going to try to break through the lines, right? I mean, what did y'all play when y'all were growing up? How did y'all survive? This was the plan, is you just barrel as hard as you could. And how did you do well? If you had more people, you had a good grip. For those of you who don't know, if you gave a little bit when they hit, instead of trying to man up, you gave a little. But the more people you had, the strong people you had with you, the easier it was for you to capture that person to be on your team. Right? That's how it is with our walk with Christ. I want you to do a quick thing right fast. Look around at the people around you. I mean, don't stare at them. That's creepy. Just kind of do a quick glance. Maybe the over shoulder, quick look. Kind of like when you see someone that, like, oh, is it so-and-so? Yeah, here, I'm going to look. Okay. All right. You see these people around you? These people around you should be the people helping you to stand. In band, we have a lot of people in band. Most of y'all know this because most of y'all are in band. All right? We have a lot of people in band. You should be able to rely on each other to help you stand up for what you're supposed to do. For reacting the way you should to things. For, having what you should say, how you should feel, where you should go. You should be able to be like, you know what? That's wrong. I'm not going to do it. And so be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stand with them because I agree. We shouldn't do that. You have those people around you. When we stand together, it's a lot easier. Tonight, I put you through a horrible game. All right. I need some honesty here. Was it okay? If you feel like it wasn't awful. It wasn't awful. Okay, I'll live with wasn't awful. All right. It was great. Did you have a lot of fun?
I had fun.
All right. No Red Rover. Okay, you ever say what?
What?
You ever say yeah?
Yeah.
Here we go. Shh. The point of that game tonight is that the teams that did the best were the teams that really worked together. It wasn't the teams that dragged somebody. I feel there's several of you. I'm sorry, you got dragged. It's the teams. It was whenever you stepped together, whenever everyone had each other's back, and whenever you were communicating. You are a team. You're not the only ones here. We're going to be on Friday, we're going to be meeting up for the fifth quarter with several other churches. They're on our team too. We need to be lifting each other up. We need to be helping each other. We need to be taking a stand for Christ. And it's so much better. So much better whenever those people around you are saying the same thing. And in the same light, when you are trying to stand for Christ around a group of people who are not, you are going to get pulled down. If I were to bring out a chair, I'm not going to do it because someone would hurt me. If I were to bring out a chair and I'd stand up in it, okay, and I'd be like me and Caleb. Caleb is probably about half my body weight, maybe a little bit more. And I stand up on this chair, hoping it holds me, and I try to pull Caleb up. Okay? I might be able to do it. If Caleb gives me the slightest bit of a tug, where am I going? Down. Off the chair. I'm coming down. It's the same way whenever you surround yourself with people. The thing we're dealing with, just so you know, this works in dating relationships too, by the way. Whenever you are surrounded by people, whoever it is you're around, us as Christians, we are constantly fighting. Okay, I want to do what God wants me to do, and then we have that flesh part of us going, I want to do what I want to do. And we're in that battle, so it's like 1 versus 1 going at. Whenever it's someone who's not following Christ, someone who it's all about them, it's two people pulling the same direction. And then you're expected, it's like 3-on-1, you trying to make a difference. When the people that you stand with stand opposite of what you're doing, it is incredibly hard. Incredibly hard to make a difference for Christ. That doesn't mean that we don't go out in the world and share our lives and stuff, but the people that you value, the people that you are surrounding yourself, the ones that you listen to their advice, those are the people who lead you either good places or bad places. My friend Andy, who I talk about a lot, he was not always a good place influence. There was we used to have church in a gym, and it looked a lot like, for those of you who've been up to Harbor, to my home church, we had these little rooms built in the gym. So they were like 12 feet up, and there was no ladder up there to get to them. My friend Andy came up with a great idea. We had stackable chairs. So what we did was we stacked up stackable chairs, and we did it, like short, two, we're both short people, and we stacked it up, and it took almost all the chairs to get high enough to where we could reach up on the top and pull ourselves up to get on. Great plan, right? Yeah. One problem. When you are standing right here and you pull yourself up and you get on, there is a jack-sized gap between the top of the thing and the chair. And coming from a guy who's scared of heights, you know what me and Andy did for the next 2 hours?
On there.
We sat up there. Because we were supposed to just be playing basketball and my mom had to run to town or whatever. And usually we behaved. Not that day. It was a poor decision. I listened very heavily to Andy. Andy got a lot better at his decision making. But at that time, whoever you're around, whoever you let be your influence is going to push you in a direction. Some of you have friends who are very close that you really rely on their wisdom and their knowledge and all that, who are pushing you towards a direction you don't need to be going. And the honest truth about that is that those are friends that you probably need to back away from. That doesn't mean that you don't love them. That doesn't mean that you don't pray for them. That doesn't mean that you don't try to reach out to them. But if they're your strongest influence, they're going to be pulling you away. This is my challenge for you. My challenge for you is I want you to ask yourself these questions while we're going through this last song. Are you standing up for God? Are you standing up, or are you being like a camouflage Christian? Which there really is no such thing. But that person that if you didn't wear a church t-shirt, or they didn't see you coming in here on Sundays, they wouldn't have a clue that you were a Christian. Some of us are living lives like that. We're not doing bad things, but we're not standing out. We're just going to kind of hide and wear through. Are you standing up for God, or are you doing that? Okay? If someone says something against God, are you offended? Are you hurt? Are you willing to do something? If someone does something against God, are you willing to stand up to help someone else? When people need your help, are you willing to do something? Second question, do the people you surround yourself with stand for God? I want you to think about that. Are you surrounding yourself with people with the same convictions? People with the same thought process, belief process. Last one is that I want you to pray for a chance to stand up for God this week. Now I tell you this, I don't pray that slightly. You know, if you pray and you ask for patience, God sends you someone in your life that will teach you patience. So you know what I'm talking about. All right? If you pray, God, I want you to provide an opportunity for me to stand for you. Be prepared. God's going to show one to you. I want you to pray that. If you're up for it, I want you to pray it. So, am I standing for God? Do I surround myself with people standing for God? God, I want you to provide me an opportunity to stand for you this week. That's what I want you to think about during this last song. Will you pray with me?